All
Okay, let's
right.
turn off my phone just so we won't have any interruptions. And I think I'm ready to go when you are, I think. Any questions or
No,
uh
we'll save them for the interview. We'll just
okay,
we'll just get after it.
okay, so it's basically just a conversation, right?
Yeah.
Okay, do you have any pre pre questions that you came up with before you joined or not?
Not really, because I don't know a lot about it. But you know, I I've been suffering with mental health lately, so um
Okay.
I don't necessarily feel like I need any questions. I think I have them all from personal
I think
experience.
it'll probably come up naturally in the course of our conversation, the ones
Yeah.
that need to be answered. So
All right. You ready?
I'm ready when you are.
All right. Let's welcome to another episode of the Men of the House podcast. And today I am joined by Dale Walsh, who is a coach for the families of those diagnosed with schizophrenia. And, here at the Men of the House, we like to talk about mental health, a topic that has kind of emerged lately, but in a good way because I think there was a lot of stigma. I'm a Gen X person, and I can definitely tell you, coming from a Gen X Latino family, we did not talk about anything as it relates to mental health. And so I think opening the conversation um, is a good thing because not only does it impact the person, but it impacts the families. So, how are you doing today?
Very well, Richard. Thank you very much for having me. And what you just said about mental health, I think, is really been emphasized since COVID because with COVID and the shutdown of the world and basically everybody having to face themselves, mental health became a much more major issue. And I've been dealing with schizophrenia for 50 years, and I've really been in like the deeper trenches of I call it a psychotic or duck wars, But basically, what in order just to introduce myself, I'm a poet. I decided on my 10th birthday I was going to be a writer, so. I've always followed that through on that. And I say one of the ironies of my mental illness is it got me out of the rat race so I could just devote myself to my writing. But I have 6 books and 5,000 poems. And one I use as an introduction on podcast just to summarize what happened and avoid a lot of unnecessary verbiage. So it goes, it's called Dale Reviewing What Actually Happened, and it goes like this. Hi, I'm God was the joke I made after Killer Dartmouth toke of some primo Ivy League smoke, which apparently caused me to croak because in mental hospital I awoke with Roomy Gabriel, the main bloke who did my delusions angelically stroke. Even while doctor claimed my brain broke the moment divine gag I spoke, testifying I was only bit quack, which clinicians diagnosed as psychotic attack, preventing me from getting sanity back until I came to Teaneck Hackensack to pursue resident therapy program track and deal with my evident lack of reason among psychiatric patient pack who never gave me any slack. Under interrogation, the story didn't crack.
Wow.
And so that's basically what happened. In the summer of 1975, after a very academically successful but drug-filled freshman year at Dartmouth College, I came up with what I thought was the best joke I'd ever come up with, and it was "Hi, I'm God," because how could God be 5'8"? You know, So basically, I was walking around campus for 3 days and telling everybody my joke, and I'm not seeing how long it was before I burst into hysterical laughter because, the punchline, how could God be 5'8"? So
Yeah.
I was in my best friend's room lighting a bowl of hash, and the campus cops came in and said, "Are you Dale?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Would you come with us?" I said, "Sure." I thought they were going to take me to meet the president of the university. So I put the hash I was smoking in my pocket and went with to the campus cop station wagon, and they took me not to the president, but on a 2-minute ride to the infirmary, where for the next 4 hours I was interrogated by 3 sets of Ivy League psychiatrists and ultimately put in a room, given a shot, and 3 days later I was in a mental hospital in New York City with a roommate named Gabriel, who was very deferential towards my mother, Mary Alma, whose second husband's name was Joseph, and who ultimately married the judge. So there I was, out of Dartmouth. I mean, one Tuesday I was like a partying but successful Ivy League student, and the next Tuesday I was in the best mental hospital in New York City.
Okay.
So
Let's take a step back for one moment. What I want to get a little bit of your childhood before we go into
okay,
Dartmouth and after. Um, and kind of when this, because the poem kind of summarizes it well. But where did you grow up and kind of what was your family life like? And um, because I want to dissect and figure
right.
out if you had any inkling, if the thoughts, the possibility of schizophrenia was even on your radar as a youth. So where did you grow up and kind of what was and you went to Dartmouth, so I know you're smart. So what was
So I
growing up like?
uh, I appreciate this, and actually, very few people actually ask me about this. But this is so basically, I say I knew what Dale was up to 20 years before anybody else knew what was happening at Dartmouth, and that's what happened at Dartmouth. So basically, I was Dale for 20 years before Dartmouth, before I got taken away from Dartmouth.
Right.
So, my mother, my best friend defined my mother as a force of nature,
Mm-hmm.
and so I had my birth dad, and I was born Roger Dale Allen in Midland, Texas,
Oh,
and
I'm
then
in Texas.
okay, so I was born in Midland, Texas, and on my first birthday, because my mother thought perceived my father as an alcoholic, the divorce from him was completed, so that I never knew my blood father till I was 26. But so that's like a whole different chapter that went
Yeah.
its own tangent that went its own way. And he actually remarried and had two daughters by his second marriage. So,
Where
but
did y'all
then,
relocate from Midland? Did y'all
so, no, well, my mother, my sister, and me. My sister was always with me. My older sister.
Mhm.
I say my sisters are like an Olympic event. There's three halves, two steps, and one reel. But my real sister has always been constant in my life. So, anyway, so Sarah and my mother divorced Roger and married this guy named Joseph Tompkins, and he was another oil man from Texas. Roger was an oil man, and Jody was a oil man in Texas, but he lived in Abilene. So basically, I was born in Midland, but I first came to consciousness in Abilene with Jody as my father.
Okay.
I and so I grew up. My first name that I knew was Joseph Dale Tompkins. So then, when I was 9, my mother went to Washington or New York, and long story short, she was having a big fight in this. This is 1964.
Okay.
So she's having a big battle with with my grandfather's bank about her inheritance because women had like absolutely no financial rights outside their husbands in 1964.
Yeah, and
So
a lot of them were homemakers and didn't,
right, right.
we hadn't had the whole women's movement yet, and so
Right.
they were
And
dependent.
but the thing is, my mother was very well financially trained by her father. So she basically was she was a homemaker, but but anyway, so long story short, she brings this man home, Judge Walsh. Uh, she goes up to New York. She's married to Jody. She seems to be happily married to Jody.
Hmm.
And then she comes back from New York with this strange man, Judge Walsh, who she introduces to the family. And he spends like and she says that he's going to like help her with the bank. So
Okay.
that was basis, because and Judge Walsh actually was if Nixon had been elected in 1960, Judge Walsh would have become Attorney General
Oh
of the
wow.
United States. But he never would have met my mother, but he would have been Attorney General of the U.S. So he was a big lawyer. And so my mother brought him home. And then my sister saw what was happening and she hated him immediately and said he's going to screw everything up. But I don't want to extend the story too long. Uh, my mother married the judge.
Hmm.
I was readopted and I became Dale Edward Walsh. So, Richard, as a result of three birth certificates and three fathers, my full name is Roger Joseph Dale Edward Allen Tompkins Walsh. And people ask me why I'm a schizophrenic.
Yeah.
And so what happened was Abilene was like the most ideal childhood a kid ever could have had. I had the only pool in my neighborhood. I had a playroom. This was at the height of the baby boom. So basically, within 3 blocks, we had like twenty kids within like 3 years of my age. And my house was like the hub because we had the swimming pool, and my mother would buy endless Dr. Pepper and Coke so everybody could always have a soda. So, and Abilene had every Saturday we go downtown to the theater and get a triple feature and a Coke and a popcorn for $1. So,
Wow. I remember those days. My first date, I was 9, so 76, so it would have been about 84, 85. And we went downtown and there was a theater. We got a double feature for $1. And I took my first date to see, her name was Christy Phillips, and Carlo DeSanto was dating her sister, April Phillips. And we went and saw Top Gun and The Golden Child for a
oh,
dollar.
okay, cool.
Yeah, but so what was how was your childhood in terms of um now did you as a child did you display any traits of schizophrenia or um let me see. Yeah, did you have any inkling or
Not
was this a later kind of development or y-
well.
did your parents notice or how did you feel during that time growing up? Did you think something was wrong with you? Did you think
No,
I'm just different?
I was perfectly in. I was always perfectly integrated.
Uh-huh.
I was always the smallest kid in my class.
Okay.
But nobody ever bullied me. Even in high school, they called me feisty because I might have been small, but I didn't take any crap. And I remember the first day of kindergarten. Uh, the lady next door. her daughter I was in love with, her name was Karen, but Karen's mother had dated Dan Blocker in high school. I don't know if you remember Dan Blocker, but Dan Blocker was Hoss Cartwright on the Bonanza.
Oh, huh.
So basically, Hoss Cartwright was like the big brother. He was like the bruiser and everything. So like the first day of kindergarten on the playground, uh, I just like channeled Karen's mother and imagined that she was dating Dan Blocker. So I threw like all the other kids, even though they were all bigger than me, I threw them on the ground and said, "You better watch out! I'm Oz Cartwright." And I never had any problems after that.
Now, how was your academic performance in school and did you play any sports?
Well, I always loved my first dream was to be a New York Yankee, but then I got ball shy. I kept getting hit in the face by throws, and that's what made me ball shy.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
but yeah, my I just love life, and there was no indication of schizophrenia, and and in a lot of ways, there's still no indication of schizophrenia. I never hallucinated. I've tripped probably 50 times on LSD, and I've never hallucinated, never heard voices. I've really, I mean, people have said I'm psychotic, but I always say that my feet have always been on the ground, and you know, that's uh, that's how I ground myself. I just say, "What's Dale?" And I say, I look at my feet, and I say, my feet are in the bachelor's pad in Hackensack, and that's all the grounding I need, and that's all the grounding that anybody really needs. So basically just look at your feet and just consider, take a breath, consider where are my feet and what do I want to do? And what so one thing that's happened is I've reduced life to a simple formula.
Hmm.
There's this deal and next deal, and that's all you got to worry about.
Um, when you were in school, what was your favorite subject?
English history. I was very good in languages. I took Latin and French. Uh, but I always loved English because I decided to be a writer. History was always like fascinating to me. I am I got probably one of the best secondary educations possible. You asked me how I did in school. I always was at the top of my class, and and even and when I moved to New York from Texas, from Abilene, my first semester at school in New York, I was the number one student, and everybody was just stunned. They said, "How can this hick from Texas like be
Yeah.
smarter than all of us?" But that's how it was. So I did get into the best boarding school in America, in Dartmouth, and everything, and so I was really on the fast track to great American success. And then the whole thing,
What did
uh,
you want to be? What were you going to Dartmouth for?
uh, as I said, I wanted to be a writer.
Okay, so writing has always kind of been that theme, and you mentioned being very good in English and whatnot. Um, huh. It's interesting is uh like you said you'd never hallucinated, never heard voices, yet you wanted to be a writer. That's kind of been the theme. And it makes me think like, you know, is the writing part your imagination, and like
Exactly.
tying those things
Well,
together of going, oh, he's schizophrenic, he's got a wild imagination possibly or whatever, and that kind of lends to the writing um in a way. But like you said, you'd never really had anything. So, um,
Well, this sort of like gets into the progression of my God thought was that I mean at Exeter, my senior year at boarding school, I sat down and I tried to write a paper or
mhm.
story from the viewpoint of God. And it quickly degenerated into humans are ants and they're all just insects and they don't have any meaning. So that was like a big failure. But basically, from that moment, basically, I sort of like adopted a mindset of God is I am an author and God is the ultimate author. So therefore, you know, it's my duty to build my story and build my imagination. And just came out. I mean, I always had like an incredible energy. I mean, nobody ever said I was ADHD or any of
Right.
that, you know. But people were always amazed at my energy from when I was a young kid. I mean, they just say, "Where you get all your energy?" And so and it's just like going Dale to Dale, Richard.
When did you now you mentioned smoking hash whenever they came to pick you up. When was your first time experimenting with some illicit substances? Was it in high school, and what were they? Was it like marijuana, hash, LSD?
Okay, so I had my first cigarette when I was 16,
Hmm.
had my first joint when I was 17, and I also had my first LSD experience at 17.
Okay. And how was that experience?
I
Since you
loved it.
didn't, yeah, okay. Yeah, I was like thinking back of going, you had no inkling of what was kind of going on. Sort of. Well, like you say, you knew what Dale was up to 20 years before, but nobody else did. So, um, now did the LSD experience, did that heighten that kind of idea of I am God and the world is ants and this and that the other?
No,
Or what kind of insight did you get from it?
well, basically, okay, so what happened was, okay, so I was put in the infirmary and interrogated by the doctors and everything, and then they had like two fraternity guys drive me down to my parents' apartment in New York City,
Hmm.
and I spent the night in my parents' apartment. My father had just been inaugurated as president of the American Bar Association, and so the next day, they say, get a good night's sleep. We're going someplace in the morning. So next morning, bright and early, everybody gets up. And at 8 o'clock, we go to this, classic Gothic building on the grounds of New York Hospital. And we go to this very ornate, nice office. And I meet a doctor named Dr. Cohane, who I call Cocaine Cohane. And so, he and I are talking, and my parents are there. And, so he says, would you sign this? So my mother says, sign it. So I signed it. And my parents get up and go left, and I go left to follow them. And Dr. Cohane says, no, Dale, you come with me. And so he takes me up to the seventh floor of a locked unit for the next 13. I mean, I got passes and everything. It wasn't like jail, but it was still a locked unit, like locked psychiatric unit, for the next 13 weeks. But what I was going to say about the LSD and everything is I don't know if you know the book, The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test.
I never heard of it, but I would like to read it.
Oh, okay. Well, it's the story of Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters. Ken Kesey, the author, was like one of the first ever to experience LSD in a experiment at Stanford University in 1957. So basically, he found out about LSD and he loved it.
Right.
And LSD was still, still legal and everything. This is before anybody knew anything about LSD. So Ken Kesey basically put together this group called the Merry Pranksters who would like party on LSD, and they got a converted school bus and like drove around the country drinking acid and just basically having a good time and everything. And so, but the motto of that book was, the motto of LSD in that book was go with the flow.
Hmm.
So basically, when I came up with this I'm God thing at Dartmouth, it was just like I'm not going to fight this. I'm just going to see where this goes. And
Oh.
it took me 50 years of going with that flow of being God before, and this is actually in the last month and a half, which is extremely relevant, is that the Dale's beliefs that he was God uh, died, or basically got it Fred actually. So Dale's believes that he's God Fred. So that means that instead of being filtering everything through my consciousness, through the consciousness of God, now I can reconnect with true Dale to Dale, which is where I should have been for the last 50 years if I hadn't got distracted by this God sidelight.
Wow. So in that 13 weeks, your experience in that 13 weeks, what do they do? How do they test? What do they determine? How do they deliver the news to you that you might be suffering from schizophrenia?
You mean are you talking about the original hospital?
Yeah, yeah. How do they figure that?
They don't. I mean, this is like one of the weaknesses of psychiatry.
Mhm.
Doctors keep everything to themselves and they don't tell patients anything. So it actually took me 7 years, uh, be, well, basically 6 years of being in the hospital, being in the program with the doctor before I found out I was diagnosed as, when I applied for disability, I found out I was diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic schizoaffective. But no one had ever told me that in 7 years of dealing with this. And all Doc said was I suffered from psychotic bliss. And then that was his like official diagnosis, psychotic bliss. Thanks a lot, Doc. What's psychotic about bliss? So, but anyway, so but it was literally 6.5 years before I actually found out what my actual diagnosis was.
Now, what
It's,
did during those 6 years, what were the treatments, and were you in the hospital the entire time?
no, I was in the program.
Okay. What does the
And
treatment
I
look
was
like?
hospitalized 9 times in the program.
Uh-huh.
But basically, the program was like three houses in the middle of Hackensack. And basically, people lived together under the tutelage of one doctor. We were all in therapy. And it was anywhere from 10 to 18 people. We would all eat together. It was like a big family. And it's called the program. And so I was in that, and I was in that for 5 years, and then I got out and I got my own place, and I've been in my own place ever since.
Um, were they in the program was part of your treatment medications as well?
According to the individual,
Okay.
according to what the doctors are, and
Okay.
I've been on constant antipsychotic medication for 50 years.
Now, do you when you first started taking it, were you reluctant and did you notice if it worked?
Well, you have to realize that my mindset towards drugs is especially back in 1975, was like a lot different than other people. Is like when when I got taken to the infirmary and they gave me that first shot of whatever it was, Haldol,
Mm-hmm.
Prolixin, whatever it was, I was saying, wow, this is opening a whole new vista of drugs I've never known before.
Ah.
So I embraced it with enthusiasm, but no one else does. And it affected me, and I said, well, this is part of it, and but having been on it for 50 years, for basically 48 years, I feel that like the success that I've had and the clarity and the integration of self that I've achieved, especially given my diagnosis, couldn't have been done without the medication.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I ask is because there's you hear it all the time of um, patients with some of these conditions that they don't like to take the medicine, and that sometimes that's the determining factor of whether or not it's controlled is
Right.
they take it for a little bit, maybe they feel like they've improved a little bit, or they suffer some side effects and they don't want to take it. And so that's always the challenge. But you know, given it made sense, kind of what you said about, hey, given your view towards drugs and experimentation, you're like, hey, this is a whole nother realm of opening up to that I get to experience. But how um how did you accept and come to
Well,
understand that you
to
would
tell
need
you
to
the
take
truth,
this?
to tell you the truth, Richard, I didn't accept it easily. I mean, but after stopping my medication 5 times and going back to the hospital within 2 weeks every time I stopped my medication, it became pretty obvious to me that I needed my medication.
Yeah, because I was in this place where like I was on antidepressants and I didn't like the way they made me feel. I stopped them for a while, and I've managed to change behaviors and put myself in a better place. But of course, a couple of years, it's like you still, whether it's, I call them episodes of,
Right,
every 3 weeks, like a little mini mental meltdown type of a thing, or
right,
you're in a bad place. And then, like, every 6 to 8 months, it exacerbates into something bigger, and you do that after a few times, and that's what kind of like the acceptance of me saying it might be an actual true chemical imbalance and you might need to try the medication. And so I've recently, in the past month, got back on medication. And yeah, and so that acceptance part
and
of,
how's that making you feel?
I don't know that it's working yet, but uh, I don't know. I think the fact that I'm trying is,
Right.
and I'm willing to give it a shot, I think says what it needs to say in terms of, um, hey, I'm willing to do it if it means success, if it means less pain, less everything that overwhelms you. If it can mute the noise a little so I can carry on with my life productively, then I'll be happy. So I'm not stuck stewing and stirring and
Right.
my thoughts and feelings of whatever they may be. But yeah, so the acceptance part um, is always, you know, because I guess
Well,
me starting it is accepting, hey, there might be some sort of true chemical imbalance. It might be something I can't control through exercise, diet, and
right.
habits and all that, And so
Well,
that's
it's,
kind of why I
it's
was.
very important to be self-aware of your own thoughts, and to me, that's really like the key to mental health.
Hmm.
Because whether you're on medication or not, I mean medication like I mean one of the benefits of medication often is it slows down your thinking so you can get control of your thoughts and just be aware of what you're thinking in the first place. And once you reach that point, then you can like tweak your thoughts. And if you can become aware of negative thoughts, and if you, the more you're aware of your negative thoughts, the more you can change them to positive, and the more positivity you create in yourself, the more happy you're going to be.
Yeah, I'm working on it. So let's go into the part where you leave the program and you get your own place, and you've been doing that since, and then we'll get into your kind of method and your support stuff. But um, when you got ready uh, to move out, and that's part of that acceptance too of, hey, I realize what I need. What How did you launch into the world? Did they give you a date and say, like, you're ready, or did you collect enough tools and say, I think I'm ready? How did that
It,
work?
it was a very organized process. First off, I went back to Fairleigh Dickinson. My roommate in the program was going Fairleigh, so I would get a ride with him for the first year, and then I got a agent and I found my apartment, and I moved into the apartment. My apartment is was basically 100 yards across the river from campus. So basically, I went directly from the program into Fairleigh Dickinson, and it took me about a year to 2 years to really get reintegrated into socialization with normal people because I'd been in the program for so long and just been like exposed to like mental illness for so
Right.
long that, being around people with mental illness was a big adjustment. But so anyway, I was always very academically successful. I actually graduated magna cum laude. I had a 3.76 out of 4 when I graduated, and but so after 2 years, I became sort of like a cult figure on campus, because every Thursday at the campus pub, they would have a band and who would play 3 sets, and for the first 2 sets, I'd be the only one on the dance floor dancing like disco duck. I I got a reputation around campuses like this. I was also a tutor and I was in classes, so everybody knew me. So then I graduated, and I started a business. Well, first off, I graduated and I didn't leave campus. I just became the spirit of the campus. I
Mm.
considered myself student body's best friend, and that grew into a business where I was actually writing papers for Fairleigh Dickinson students. So I estimate that in 10 semesters, I wrote 300 500 5-page papers.
Wow.
So, and that was like not only my income, but it was also like my connection to campus. Uh, and then sometime around 1995, one of my best friends who I actually knew from I originally known from Fairleigh, said to me, Dewey, it's one thing when you're getting older than older students, but it's another thing when you're getting older than older professors. So
Mm.
and that was sort of like an aha moment that sort of like made me just, I just like basically became a hermit within my own apartment, and I had a friend down the hall who was a degenerate, so we just like drink beer and smoke pot all day and all night. Well, he actually works, so I would like fill the days, and then he'd get home and we'd just smoke pot and drink beer till we passed out. And that went on for a long time. And then WFG World Financial Group, which is the marketing wing of Transamerica Insurance.
Hmm.
I was a insurance agent, passed my insurance license and everything. So I did that for 3 years, and that basically brings us up to the present where I'm working on getting my reputation as a poet really going.
So, um, what is it? What have been the challenges of working out with, like, let's say in a normal type of world like the insurance and stuff like that, your interactions with people, because you said it did take some adjustment to, because you've been around so many mentally ill people, but of course with campus you have students, and students have a certain demeanor and type. But
Right.
what yeah, what was it like getting back out into the world and your work
It,
experience?
well, I think I mentioned Fred, and it's just like a well working at WFG. It it was I mean it was a very good corporate situation. I mean it's a
Hmm.
great company, and they really care about people, and they really want to like help their employees become rich and everything. So I got nothing against WFG. It just wasn't me because what I found, the core of WFG is like finding within yourself the service to want to sell life insurance, and just protect people, and so I never could like get into that mindset. I was always into what's my commission,
Yeah.
the, the they would say mission before commission, but I couldn't get past commissions. So basically I just like left it. Because pursuing money, really isn't my goal in life. And I've been very fortunate. My parents like set me up for life,
Hmm.
and I never have to worry about like losing my apartment or even food or anything. So I can. So basically now I've turned my focus to like higher goals and service and the way of the Lord or of the kingdom, rather than just in service of my own prosperity.
Yeah. Well, I definitely try to go for that too. We all fall short sometimes because we have to have money to live, but ideally, yeah, for the point of something bigger and better, um, that services the world, you know. That's why we're here on this podcast, because you have information that can potentially help people and help families. So
Right.
the um what you know you talked about, you have, what did I do with my glasses? This system, live love, and is that kind of what you were alluding to, of this higher purpose of now
Um,
maybe wanting to help?
well, actually, Live Love is a therapeutic message that God downloaded to me.
Okay.
It really came through genius. But Live Love is an anagram, and it's an 8-step program which I developed for my mentoring for the family caregivers of schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, it's like it's like much more general than just what I'm using it for. I feel it really could be like a revolutionary therapeutic method to like help people deal with mental illness. But so Live Love stands for is 8 steps: learn, integrate, validate, explore, and then listen, open, value, and express. And so what I do is I have like 8 one-on-one Zoom sessions, and every session we take the next letter, and just see and I've been using it to explain or to based upon my schizophrenic recovery, but now I'm thinking about it more as just like a general uh explanation or way to help people become familiar with the whole Dale Dewey Dutch system, five in
uh,
one system.
um so how how have you, how did you, where did the idea come from potentially wanting to help families of schizophrenic people?
Well, as I said, I just realized how much hell I caused my own family, and I wanted to help other people, help other families alleviate it.
Yeah. And what's it been like? Have you what
To tell you the truth, Richard, I've only had one full. I'm working through my first full client right now. My
Okay, and
first,
how is the process going? And what's it been like? Because I
it's
know
going
like
very well. It's
zero to
going
one, 0 to 1 is the hardest, of course.
right.
Um,
Well, as I say, the first deal was the hardest, but yeah, we've done 6 sessions, and they seem very pleased, and I think I am giving them insights that are going to help them very much with their daughter, and and they say, well, actually, I'm in this group called 100X by Pedro Adeo, who's basically a kingdom entrepreneur. He
uh-huh.
teaches kingdom entrepreneur based on Christ. So basically, the Live Love program that I'm doing now, my first full Live Love program, was a scholarship given to someone who had inquired of me by some generous lady in the 100X in the Pedro program.
Hmm.
So basically it was sort of like the Lord working to get me my first client.
Yeah, and speaking of the Lord giving this interesting relationship, how what is your relationship to religion, God, and all that, given that what when you were at Dartmouth and then now and you spoke of like the kingdom, what is that relationship like for you?
Well, I think I mentioned the Dialina, right? I mentioned the 5-in-1. So the 5-in-1 is Dale, Do, Dewey, Duck, and Genius. And that's the basic 5 crew members of the Dialina on Earth at this time. And the only reason I've been able to get all 5 together is because Fred died. Because Fred was like guarding the light of genius, and the genius light of the Dialina has been replanted in the Dialina body, which is my body, Dale's body. So therefore, um, genius is the light is I in that explanation, I lost the flow of the question, Richard. You're going
Oh,
to
it
have
was
to.
about what's your spiritual relationship with
Oh,
God?
okay. So basically, um, from May 24th, there began a full lunar eclipse on May 25th, 1975. I was at Dartmouth College. That was like the moment my 20th birthday ended. So, uh, so I was looking at this eclipse and I said, this means I have to go crazy for 10 years. And I did. I
Hmm.
came to Hackensack. And, but then now it turns out that, I'm not going to go into details, but Dale's now been in Teaneck, Hackensack City for 50 years. And that 50 years is basically my whole exploration that God has given me to explore Him on earth. And basically, when I said I was God at Dartmouth, I had three objectives. One was God just wants to be one of the guys.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, uh, God uh, needs a vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And third, if Dale says he's God, then we can put to rest all this argument about whether God exists or not. Because as long as this body is on earth, then God exists. So so that's the 50-year trip. I called that, as I said, it started with the lunar eclipse and it ended on May 24th, midnight, 2025, exactly 50 years on today of my birthday. But I call that my lunacy trip.
Hmm.
And the lunacy trip was my God trip. And God allowed me to have my full trip as him. And now, so basically, uh, I'm now independent. One thing I used to say is that, I used to say I was a big fan of Friedrich Nietzsche at Dartmouth. He was like my main philosopher, and so when I came to Fairleigh and I met Fred, and I said, "God is Fred dead?" No, God is dead, Fred. As Friedrich Nietzsche said, God is dead. So God is dead, Fred. Fred is dead, God. God is Fred Dale.
What have you learned since the uh the eclipse ended, the 50-year trip in May of 2025? How have things changed since May up till now in August?
Well, now we're going to be able to see at hyperlight speed what would have happened over the last 50 years if Dale had not taken the detour to God. We're going to go super fast, Dale to Dale.
Hmm. Through all this experience, what what is your understanding of God, religion, and the universe kind of a thing?
Uh, my understanding is, and I've had 50 years of people tell me I'm delusional, but my my belief is that I have incarnated on Earth in 21st century in the most primitive conditions possible for genius to bring about the immortality of humanity and to lead to the next evolutionary step from the epoch of Fred, which is the warlord, death, and war, to the epoch of Dewdale, which is me and Hackensack.
Um, how does love factor into all this for you? Like in terms of your view of love as it relates to, a lot of people say God is love. And the world to love one another and this and that. What is your idea of that?
But despite the Fred delusions that I still have a long way to go to overcome. Love, I have never felt for one moment, for one Dale in my life, a life without love. Even though even though I feel that basically all my friends have ultimately betrayed me, I have also always felt that I was in an atmosphere of love, no matter what actions and behaviors other people ultimately took from me. But in every Dale, I've been present in an atmosphere of love.
And how given everything, so you have your idea, and then you have the world and the way the world sees you. How do you navigate in your mind and develop, like, where do you get your self-worth from?
Well, we have the world, we have me, and we have the Dialina. And Dialina, I is actually my bestseller for the 20th century actually is called Velvet Velour's Follies Book Two, or The Flight of Dialina, which is the story of the apocalyptic romance of Velvet Velour and Truly Stylish, the commanding couple of the Dialina. So basically, the Dialina is the the starship of the omniverse. And what we're living here on Earth is a universe. That's the one. But the omniverse is all. So the omniverse and the dialene are all encompassed in one big sort of like idea or concept that's getting smaller as I grow, so that it will become an actual reality. But as it is, the Dialena controls everything, and every everything is a Dale, and Dialena knows every Dale.
Mm,
And Dale, a Dale is your feet planted on the ground.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So, in your daily life, and let's say other people who might have or suffer from schizophrenia, including their families, what does like I want to say like what's the recovery process look like in terms of what should families uh encourage? Like
Well,
it's
this is
good for you to have routine, structure, this, that, the other, or
so this is a this is something you're not going to find in any medical text, Richard, but this is Dale's solution to schizophrenia.
mm-hmm.
Accept the 5 in 1. Accept that there are five basic personalities within, and this is true for all huons. I say DNA plus Fred or Dale equals human, but Dialena plus do equals Hugh1, Hughone. So the one, it's not a man or a woman, it's a one, and it's the next level, it's the next evolutionary level of humanity where everybody realized that they're a Dialena. And every Dialena has five basic ignition points to get to enlightenment. And they are, you start with Dale, you figure out what to do, you do it to genius. Genius will duck you to Dialena, and then you can create whatever reality you want to. And this is all possible now because Fred was born in 1947 and I was born in 55. So now we are at last in Dale after Fred.
Yeah,
After the suppression of the light is finally coming through. It is blasting.
yeah. Um, so what does life look like for you on a daily basis? Kind of what's your give us a rundown of a typical day of Dale.
Uh, Wake up, woke and toke.
I
People know wake and bake. I call it woke and toke.
like
So
that.
so basically, wake up, take, in no particular order, woke and toke, coffee, shower, uh, check the phone, messages, correspondence, and then just see what kind of day it is and develop it. I usually have stuff to do, whether it's podcast or
Mm-hmm.
meeting or something. And everybody has 24 hours. So I mean that's the thing, and the trouble.
How does the woken toke treat you, and is it recommended? What does it do for you? Because I used when I quit using alcohol, I used THC to
Right.
like one, I say it gives me the 10-second delay in my brain. It slows me down enough that might mean the difference of if you approach me, it can mean the difference of me telling you to fuck off or maybe say hi, how are you
Reaction
doing?
versus response.
Yeah, so that's kind of what it did for me. What does it do for you? Is it recommended and all that?
Well, I definitely don't recommend it for anyone under 18.
Right.
I think that it's very important because it has been shown to like definitely affect young
The
minds.
development,
Yeah.
especially
So
men, because we don't really fully develop till we're
right.
probably 25 or
And
27.
and the other thing is, it can't. I meant, I really think the tipping point for me was the LSD, but the increasingly better Ivy League weed I was getting every day, definitely had an effect. And actually, when I was in my first hospital, my Dr. Cocaine Cohane said, you can smoke weed till it comes out of your ears still, just don't ever do LSD again, So
Do they
that
think
was
that LSD had any w did that lead to the possible schizophrenia? Or was this
um
something that
well
you kind of
you know
knew
what
ahead of
they
time?
say, Richard, the last trip is the longest. So
Ah,
basically I've been on a 50-year LSD trip, and however you want to diagnose this, to tell you the truth, I'm beyond my schizophrenic diagnosis. I diagnosed myself. I call it XCTPSD, and it's called extremely complex PTSD. And it's only possible if you've been in the mental health system more than 30 years.
yeah, not me, my mom, but only because she's worked there. It's our family
Right, right.
business. I worked for the hospital I was born at. But yeah, so that's interesting. Does the marijuana, what does it do for you? Does it slow your brain down? Does it give you the like compared to when you don't take it, what's the benefit you get from it?
It THC is the fuel of dialine. It allows me to integrate the five in one.
Okay. Um, and so the doctor said, nope, smoke it till it comes out of your ears. So that's,
But that's what my first doctor said, and then my main doctor, that the program doctor, said it caused me to go psychotic, and every time I escalated, he would put me in the hospital. So, there were many times when I would come into a session and go, "Are you escalating, Dale? Because you're going to the hospital if you are."
what,
And
what happens when you don't take it? What's the difference?
well, as I said, I took a 17-year break, and I just wasn't as happy. I mean, that's the bottom line. I I'm linear when I'm not smoking, Richard. I'm linear. I go from Dale to Do to Dewey. But when I have a joint, or when I do THC, it's all quantum unity.
Mm, yeah.
So instead of linearity, not only in time but in space, it's just like everything is sort of like hovering on the dialina above me, and nothing's going to go wrong, especially now that Fred's gone.
Man. So is there was there any questions I didn't ask you that you wish I would have?
I That's it. No one's ever asked me that. That I remember, but basically, so what about? I guess I would ask you about. I would like you to ask me about uh my feelings about how I was treated apropos of my desire for THC, because I feel that my whole experience since Dartmouth has been a systematic conspiracy by authority to shut me down, to silence me, and they tried everything. They tried every. I mean, they even tried a neutronic attack on me. In 1984, I had what I called the death of Dale, which was I was walking across the bridge to campus at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I had a series of six flashes, and the last flash was of the entire Earth being incinerated in a thermonuclear holocaust. And I called that the death of Dale. Everything that was Dale except his body died that moment. So basically, for the last 40 years, I've been at the front lines of this war with Fred, because and we, but been at war with an unknown enemy. But in March, Dale returned. Dale was reborn in Hackensack,
Mm.
and that was signal that victory in Duck Wars had been achieved, and therefore Muck was no longer a threat. And this was borne out when I found out that Fred had died. Because even though Fred was like a great person, he was Muck's greatest warrior. And his death is the completion of a 70-year mission impossible on my part.
And why would they want to silence you?
Because because I believe in having fun, and the government doesn't want us to have fun.
No, they they want to control the fun,
Well,
or
that
or
what
if they can profit off of it.
Right, exactly. But I mean, we're talking about real fun, you know. I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
what I was saying. So, this is due history, but basically, Dale first died in 1929. So, and then Fred appeared in 1947. He was born. So basically, going looking back, if you look at the death of Dale in 1929 and the Depression in World War II as a prelude to Fred, then basically no one has in America has known what it is to have fun since the 1920s, even though they had prohibition. But
It's interesting because I was back in October through January, I was a live-in caregiver for a 97-year-old veteran who was born in 1927, and his parents lived through the Depression, and uh, he was in the Navy. And so when you talk about that, I think back of all those times, my conversations with him, how the world was, what was the world after, rebuilding after World War II and this and that, the other, and then um, somewhere in the 70s and 80s, it takes a turn and, you know, um,
you know what I feel is uh basically, with the atomic bomb, we opened a portal to a new reality that was Fred. And so basically, after World War II, America, the Allies were victorious, but the Allies were also the communists. But so basically, what happened was Fred was born and the military industrial complex took over. And now that Fred is gone, his M16 has been retired, then that epoch of mankind is gone. That the epoch of the warlord is gone, and now it's the epoch of duck peace.
yeah, but how are we going to get that way in the current world we live in today, man? It's everything but
It's all
peace, it seems.
subconscious. It's all subconscious. It's already happened on a subconscious level. It's just like a matter of helping people to realize that Fred is dead and come out of the Stockholm syndrome of we need M16 to protect us, because M16 has always been pointed at our temples instead of at somebody else. So basically, the whole world basically since 1929 has been suffering from Stockholm syndrome. I'm not sure if you know what that is.
Yeah.
That's basically where hostages fall in love with their captors, and I was very guilty. I was very guilty of this with Fred. I just felt like he was a power court. He was a power, and he could keep me protected. But the first God let me go, and then Fred died. So basically, I was holding on to God's knees, sort of like a little kid holding on to his mother. And after 50 years, God said, "No, Dale, you got to go back to being Dale." I said, okay. And I took a deep breath and like a big man, like just turned and came back to Dale. But because of that, because of the light that was shown, because I walked away from God, Fred died because his purpose was through because the light no longer needed to be protected.
And what did what does God want you to do when he says go and be Dale? You have to go be Dale. What's his
Create the
mission
re-
for?
create the realm of the kingdom of Christ.
Okay.
Where everybody is a king and a queen. Everybody's a king and a queen, a son and a daughter, and a warrior.
Okay.
War god.
One final question. If you were if we could make Dale the president tomorrow, what would you do to make the world a better place?
I've been the president for 70 years, Richard. I've been running things for 70 years. And the fact is that I've been working on getting Fred out of the picture, and it took 70 years. He was 77, but he's out of the picture now. And now the Ducks, with Fred out of the pictures, we are now officially in Duck Wars. So if there is no Fred, everybody has three choices. They can choose Huey, who's my best friend and roommate from high school. They can choose Donald, the president, or they can choose Dewey, the duck. And but it all breaks down into the American system. Donald is the executive, Hugh is the legislative, and I'm the judiciary.
Hmm.
So
Awesome.
that's basically what I've been doing lately is setting that up.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's plenty to study. But well, all right. That sounds like a good place to wrap it up. But do you have any questions for me?
Well, I did want to thank you for your incisive questions, and you asked me a couple that nobody's ever asked me for, and it's always good. And just thank you for your patience and your listening, and had a great time. And take care, and maybe we can come back sometime and do this again.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time. You're um very interesting, very insightful, and I'm a student of life, and this gives me food for thought and things to think about and how I view the world, um and so yeah, it's been great. That's what this show is all about. It's about perspective and
We're
seeing.
all mirrors, Richard.
I know. But yeah, thank you for your time, and I will definitely see you on the flip side. And the call to action for the audience and anyone is to go
So,
out.
oh, one last thing.
Yeah.
So, I used to have a website at www.dewlivelove.net, all one word.
Hmm.
And but I lost the website. I lost the domain. So I went to it today and I put in www.dewlivelove.net, and all my former podcasts came up.
Oh,
So if you're interested in like a further exploration in the Dale, now you just have to go to that website. And
awesome.
I have it. I think I didn't count, but I have it like at least 10 to 15 podcasts that I've done that you can see there.
Awesome. Well,
And
I'll link that in the show notes.
and did I tell you about my new my new podcast of my own with Andrew? It's called the DW Andrew conspiracy. And we've had 5 episodes on YouTube and podcast platforms, and I would encourage people to listen to it. It's up to the date news about what's really happening.
And what's the name of that again?
It's a DW do
Uh-huh.
Andrew Andrew do Andrew conspiracy.
Awesome. Yeah, I will put that in the show notes, and I'm definitely interested to go check that out. Um, as I go when I get to go Uber today, I'll give it a listen because that's one of my favorite things to do while I Uber is listen to podcasts, think
Great.
think about the
Well,
world, and think about how we want the world to be,
yeah, and
which is better.
well, I think that what it Fred, the death of Fred was like definitely a depression or a pit that we've reached, and now it's nothing but up.
Yeah. Well, awesome, man. But like I tell everyone, we end the show with go out and be the person that you would want to meet. So if you want to meet cool people, go out and be cool. Um, you want respect, you got to give respect. You want love, you got to show love, right? Reciprocity. So it all
Absolutely.
it all starts with you individually.
And just remember that everybody's a mirror. Everybody's a reflection of everybody else.
Mm, awesome, man. I'll I'll update everything on Podmatch on the release and I'll let you know. I'll be in contact. Thank you for your
Well,
time
great,
today.
great, great joining you, Richard. Thank you very much for your time.
All right.